Right now at 5, the deadliest commercial air disaster in this country in more than 2 decades. 67 people killed after an American Airlines plane collided midair with an Army helicopter.
This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital.
It's just such a tragic event.
But the only way that we will get through this is together.
More than a dozen victims are from the ice skating community, and tonight we are learning more about who was killed, the communities impacted, and how this could have happened. Good evening. I'm Christine Johnson.
And I'm Dick Brennan. Tonight, the NTSB is beginning to uncover exactly what went wrong in the collision between an American Airlines plane and an Army helicopter.
We're also learning more about the staffing conditions inside the air traffic control tower at the time of the collision. Right now, the NTSB says they have not yet recovered the flight data recorders. As for the victims, there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board the American Airlines plane. 3 soldiers were on the Army Black Hawk helicopter. And tonight, we are starting to put faces and names to the number of victims.
And now a live look at the Potomac River, where recovery efforts continue. You can see some of the divers in the water and wreckage of the crash still in the water. We have team coverage tonight. Tim McNicholas is live in Washington. Masa Saidi is reporting on President Trump's controversial comments. And Alice Skinner has more about who was on board. Let's begin with investigator Tim McNicholas live in D.C. with the latest on the investigation. Tim.
Dick and Christine, emergency crews have now recovered, tragically, at least 28 bodies. And you can see behind me fire trucks and other emergency vehicles stationed near the water right here as first responders use this area as a kind of home base in their recovery efforts. As for the collision itself, sources tell CBS News that one air traffic controller was managing the helicopters and planes from the Reagan National Airport tower at the time of the collision. It's a job normally done by 2 people. Earthcam video captured the moment a passenger plane collided with a military helicopter. While President Donald Trump raised questions about the role of air traffic controllers in the collision.
When the air traffic controller said, "Do you see?" he was talking about, "Do you see him?" But there was very little time left when that was stated.
The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, says they're just beginning their investigation and don't know the cause.
We look at the human, the machine, and the environment. So we will look at all the humans that were involved in this accident.
The NTSB says they are still searching for the flight data recorders, or black boxes, which could provide critical information on the flight paths. 67 people were on board the 2 aircraft that collided, 3 on the military helicopter and 64 on a passenger plane that departed from Wichita, Kansas. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Black Hawk helicopter, similar to this one, was operated by a fairly experienced crew on a routine annual training mission.
Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. And I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level.
President Trump said this about the helicopter.
It did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight.
The NTSB did say they will be looking into the role that air traffic control played, including whether fatigue was a factor at all, but they do not know that to be the case right now. The National Union for Air Traffic Controllers said they stand by their members and they are ready to work with the Trump administration on any efforts to improve safety. Christina, Dick.
Tim, we've heard complaints about the crowded airspace in and around the D.C. area. Lots of flights coming in, and yet the area that covers this space is very small. Have lawmakers raised concerns about this in the past?
Sure, yeah. So several senators have raised concerns about that, specifically about airspace congestion at Reagan National Airport, including Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. He was asked about that this morning, and when he was asked, he said that he will ask questions about that at the appropriate time. Christina, Dick.
Investigator Tim McNicholas in Washington, thank you. A former Black Hawk helicopter pilot says Black Hawks don't have many of the same systems of civil aircrafts like collision avoidance warning systems. He spoke on CBS Mornings about pilot training.
they're taught and they're trained, because I went through the exact same training, that airspace awareness and scanning the airspace is absolutely critical in any environment. You put them in this environment where there are hundreds of flights that go in and out every single day, that scanning has to be even more disciplined and frequent.
The former pilot says another factor that investigators will look at, whether the pilots were using night vision goggles. He says night vision goggles can reduce the field of view by 40%.
Everyone on board the two separate aircrafts are presumed dead, and among them, champion figure skaters and U.S. soldiers.
Alice Gaynor joins us with more on what we know about the victims. Alice.
You know, all day long, heartbreak after heartbreak, hearing about these people who perished in this terrible accident. 3 soldiers on board the Army helicopter have been recovered. That's according to U.S. officials, who say so far 28 bodies total have been pulled from the water. 64 people were on board the plane, and all day we've been finding out more about them. They include 14 members of the ice skating community.
We pray over the lives that are impacted by this collision.
A vigil was held at City Hall in Wichita, Kansas this afternoon, the city where the American Airlines flight originated. One of the American Airlines pilots has been identified as 28-year-old Samuel Lilly, engaged to be married this fall. The crew chief on the helicopter that collided with the plane has been identified as 29-year-old Ryan O'Hara, who leaves behind a wife and 1-year-old son. Russian-born ice skating coaches and former world champions Zhenya Shishkova and Vadim Nomov, who were married, were also on board the plane.
We just wanted to be here and be part of our community. I've never seen anyone love skating as much as these two, and that's why I think it hurts so much.
Figure skating legend Nancy Kerrigan cried as she joined the Skating Club of Boston in mourning the coaches and others.
It's a close, tight bond, and I think for all of us, we have lost family.
2 skaters, 16-year-old Spencer Lane and Gina Hahn, and their mothers, Christine and Jin, were also on board. Spencer's father says he and his wife adopted their 2 sons from South Korea and describes Spencer as a force of nature.
Just loved by everyone, from the adults running the club to the smallest skaters to the people that are, competing for a shot at the Olympics. They all just adored him.
In 1961, the Skating Club of Boston lost 18 of its members who were traveling to the World Championship in Prague when their plane crashed. U.S. Figure Skating said athletes, coaches, and family members were returning last night from the National Development Camp held along with the U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Kansas. At the Ice House rink in Hackensack, New Jersey, the skating director says he knows multiple victims.
We all know each other, and we all are friendly, and it's just shocking to lose so many all at once.
He says 2 young victims were supposed to train at the Ice House next week.
Our choreographer here, told me that she's like, oh my God, I think that I'm supposed to teach them next week. That really hits home.
It certainly does. Others confirmed on the plane include 4 members, with plumbers, pipe fitters, and steam fitters Local 602. The union confirming this in a statement, saying they'll share more information as it becomes available. And Fairfax County Public Schools says it's lost members of its community, but did not give any more specifics. Dick and Christine?
Absolutely heartbreaking, Alice. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alice. And this note, American, United, and Delta Airlines are offering travel waivers for people impacted by last night's tragedy. These waivers, usually only issued during inclement weather, do allow passengers traveling to and from Reagan Airport to reschedule without paying extra fees.
The last time a passenger plane went down in the Potomac was 43 years ago, January 13, 1982. 78 people died when a plane headed for Tampa hit several vehicles on the 14th Street Bridge before crashing into the river. It happened shortly after takeoff from Reagan National. The cause was ice on the plane's wings and engines, as well as pilot error. And in 2009, a similar crash happened between a small private plane and a tour helicopter. The aircraft collided over the Hudson near Hoboken. 9 people were killed. The NTSB said the helicopter wasn't initially visible to an air traffic controller handling the plane.
Do stay with CBS News New York as this investigation into the midair collision continues. We'll have updates throughout this hour and also online at cbsnewyork.com.